Welcome back to another episode of Eddie's Garden. It is mid-June right now, which means that the garden is absolutely taking off. I'm going to take you on a journey, and we're going to go and look at every single plant I'm growing. There's about 40. Well, there would be 40, but it's more like 30 planted out right now. And we're going to see what's doing well, what's doing not so well, what needs an intervention from the ambulance, and how exactly I plan on fixing everything. So we're gonna go over things that are doing well. I got my corn here, I got my tomatoes popping off. We're gonna go over seedlings starting, which I have down here. And I've got a bunch of peppers over here, as well as a Carolina Reaper, which has just popped up over here. We got herbs, so let's just get into it. So this is my new basil, and as you can tell, it is not happy. Why? Well, I took a basil plant from the store. It's a basil plant that usually does really well for me. The problem is that the day that I planted out, temperatures plummeted in the evening, so it got absolutely massacred by that cold. It happens. You gotta be mindful of the weather when you're doing these kinds of things. Now, if we look over here, I've got a weed here. I thought this was some kind of spinach. Wrong, I need to remove that. And my cucumbers, as well as my tumbling Tom tomato over here, are a little bit pale, and the reason for that is when you grow in a container, really the only nutrients that the plant has are from the container itself. So if you're not fertilizing it and putting in the food that these plants need, they are going to run into issues and lack nutrients. And a really great example of that is my nasturtium over here, because this nasturtium, the bigger one, is the one that's been in this pot for the longest time. Meanwhile, this new fresh one took like fresh compost from its little starting pot, and that's why it's a bit greener, right? But if I left it in without adding fertilizer or anything, it would also go pale. Now, this is my potatoes, and you might think, oh my goodness, that is absolutely terrible. But actually, this is exactly what you want to see at this part of the season, because I planted these out about, I want to say 60 to 100 days ago. And the way that you know potatoes are ready is when the potato vine actually dies down completely. And what you want to do then is leave it in the ground for another 2 weeks. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see me harvest that in 2 weeks. And the reason why you want to do that without watering is so that those skins can toughen up inside the dirt. And, you know, the roots are still going to be growing, and the potato is a root. So leaving it in for another 2 weeks really just make sure you get the most bang for your buck and the biggest harvest possible. And we can move over here to potatoes that are planted about 2 to 3 weeks later. As you can see, they're also starting to yellow. But if you look up here, that's kind of the green that it should be versus like everything else, right? This leaf here. So it's starting to die back too. I reckon in another 2 weeks, it's going to look exactly like that one, which means I have a staggered potato harvest, which is perfect. Now, let's talk a little bit more about my herbs over here. So my thyme is doing absolutely great. It's a Mediterranean herb. It really doesn't need a lot of amendment. It's good, it's happy. You don't need to water it very often. Honestly, if you're a first-time grower, just grow a couple herbs. Once you get that down, you can move up to the more advanced stuff. Meanwhile, my oregano here, as you can tell, it's huge. And I pruned this back heavily. It was like a bush coming out all the way like this pretty much, which means that it's pretty much gone through all the nutrients that this container has to offer. And that's why we see the new growth just not doing well. It's yellowing. It's just not lush and green, kind of like these top leaves here are, because what plants will do is they will always take the nitrogen. Nitrogen is a mobile nutrient that the plant can move around itself, and it's always going to put it towards its new growth. But, you know, you want the whole plant to be green. So I have the same thing happening here with my lovage. On top of that, the lovage does seem to have some kind of disease attacking it, but I reckon that a little bit of nitrogen is going to give it the food it needs to fight that off. And my mint over here, it's doing fine, but it's also starting to show signs of yellowing, even in the new growth, which means that this is about to turn really bad. So I've got a bunch of fertilizer on the way. In fact, it might even be in my PO box right now. So I'll be making another video where I show you how to apply that. And in the next update in about 2 to 3 weeks, I'll show you if it's worked or if I don't have a balcony garden anymore. That would suck. Now, continuing with my failures, this was supposed to be a nice strawberry tower. The problem was that all of my strawberries that I tried to start from seed just didn't germinate or didn't take off. I think that's because I didn't expose them to enough sunlight. Sometimes seeds need to be exposed to sunlight. Strawberries are like 50-50 if they need that. But what I decided instead was to turn this into a kale tower because I had a bunch of little kales in a seed starting pot that, you know, needed an upgrade. So this is now a kale tower. Is this the correct way to grow kale? Absolutely not. I think realistically what you would want here is 2, maybe 3 kales. But this is fun. You know, it's important to have fun with your gardening too. Now, this is absolutely fantastic and my crown jewel pot. So what we've got over here are my radishes, which have come on absolutely brilliantly. And I really need to harvest these because you really want to be harvesting radishes in their window, which is in about 20 to 30 days. And these have now been in there for a little bit longer than that. But I'm really looking forward to this. I will be harvesting these at the end of this video. And just like the potatoes, once you see your onions just go from nice and happy to plopping over, that's when you know they're also ready. So what I'm doing is I'm waiting for these necks right here to kind of really get paper thin, and they are close. If I put my fingers here, it's like there's a sheet of paper in between. The stem has pretty much all but gone. I reckon another 2-3 days and these will be ready to pull out as well. Realistically, I should just show you guys that on the video too. I'll put that in at the end. So, end of the video, we're harvesting all of this. But yeah, these onions are ready. Maybe this one still has a little way to go. I'll leave this one in a little bit longer. But as you can see, it also splits into multiple different ones, which is really cool. So we're gonna see how that worked out when we pull it out. Now, my chives plant is something that I've overwintered for 2 seasons now. It's doing great. It's the first plant I ever had that did really well. As you can see, it's still very happy. These carrots are a mistake. These carrots are better. So what you don't want with carrots is basically to have a bush, because this means they're sown way too densely. Now, what happens is that then you have to imagine that like you've got the green leaves on top and a huge one long root that goes down. And that one long root is what turns into a carrot. So if you have a lot of carrots side by side, there's just no space for those roots to really like buff up and grow out. So I'll show you another carrot that I have right here, which was a complete accident. This is one of the pots I tried to start in winter, which is impossible here. I shouldn't have done that. There's just no sunlight, nothing grows then. But as you can see, this stem is getting really, really thick. And so this carrot over here is actually starting to develop very well. So what I'm gonna do with my correct container is pretty soon I'm gonna start thinning this out to where there's just about 1 inch, which is, I don't know, 2 to 3 centimeters, closer to 3 centimeters of space between every single carrot. So I wanted spacing like I've got here between these two, rather than whatever is happening down here, for example. So let's quickly go over what I'm growing over there and here. This is something that everyone should be familiar with, but it's still very small. And this is lettuce. So I've got lettuce on the windowsill here, and these are very cute. I've got another kale here, and this, I believe, is a carrot, but we'll find out. I'm not sure. Now, these are interesting because they're from the same family. This is my beetroot, which is doing absolutely fantastic. I mean, look at how much growth there is. It's just taking off. The leaves are massive. Meanwhile, my rhubarb chard, I've only had one germinate, and I don't know, it's not doing great, is it, guys? I mean, look at this. It's kind of flopping all over the place. So I don't know, there's something wrong, I think, with the rhubarb chard seeds that I got, because they should be growing much, much better. There's no difference between these two pots. Now, this is a little lesson in overcrowding. So it's actually an experiment I did on a very small scale. I had 4 celery plants, and 3 of them were like all bunched up together, and one was kind of separate. So I took the one that was separate and placed it here, nice and happily. But the 3 that were all together, I couldn't really separate them without killing all 3. So I put them all in together, and as you can see, this is one over here, and this is another, and it's tiny. And when I put these all in, these were all the same size. And then you've got this one, which I had to move out, and this one isn't doing anything at all. I'm probably just gonna get rid of this. But I do need to thin one of these 2 out, because the second I do that, these plants are gonna have enough space, well, whichever one I leave, and it's going to grow massive, just like the one over here. Remember, this is 1, and these are 3 over here. So yeah, don't overcrowd your pots. Give them the space that they actually deserve. Moving on to my corn, which is doing absolutely great. I'm very happy with it. There's a saying that your corn should be knee-high by July, which is cool. It's cute, and this corn will definitely be that. It is currently about, let's see, it's getting there. It's pretty far up my leg. It's like 70% of the way there. So we're definitely going to be fine by July. My corn might be the only thing that's actually growing on time this season. And this tomato. One of them has decided to just completely overachieve and demolish the other ones that I have, and it's taking off. But as you can see, another example of there just not being enough nutrients and nitrogen in these containers. These are freshly grown ones in fresh compost, right? The whole container was new soil. Meanwhile, this was a mix of old soil and new soil. And just look at the difference in the color between these nice dark green leaves, and these are yellowing like at a dramatic pace. And guys, 1 week ago, this one was as green as that guy. And we've got the same one with this one here, and the same issue with this cucumber, which is really struggling compared to this one, for example, which is still okay, but also on its way out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fertilize all these guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit them first with the liquid fertilizer, which is immediately bioavailable to the plants. But then after that, I'm going to throw in a slow release fertilizer, which I should have done from the beginning. And next season is definitely something I'm going to do to add to my soil regimen, which is currently compost, perlite, and it will be the slow release fertilizer. So the last thing that we're going to discuss are my seedlings, and specifically what I've got over here are a couple of cute little basil plants. I really love these. They're so nice. It was difficult to start them from seed. If I were doing it again, I would probably just go ahead and direct sow them, but peppers do great with first being grown in a smaller pot and then transplanting. So I've got tons of varieties. I've got Scotch Bonnet, Masquerade, Explosive Ember, Cayenne, Piri Piri Bird's Eye, Habaneros, Piquinos, which are great. I'm so excited for this one. This one should be really, really cute. Thai chilies, and the two really cool ones are the Carolina Reapers and the Ghost Scorpions. Now, I was really, really worried about these two, and I just moved them into a slightly sunnier spot because those others have been kind of popping up and going off for the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, these were doing nothing, and I planted all of them at the same time. So I'm really, really happy to see the Carolina Reaper start to pop up, and I need to give this guy a little bit more water. Now, the rest of the stuff here isn't really that interesting. I've got some tomatoes, some basil, some parsley. These are also tomatoes, but it's just not doing well. It's basically the leftovers from all of the other stuff I wanted to start. And in case something were to die, I have a backup for it. And the same applies to here. So I've got kale. This, I'm not sure what it is. It says oregano, but it's not. And these are some oreganos which just died. It wasn't worth trying to start them from seed, honestly. Some more parsley. This, I thought it was corn, but I guess it's just going to be a weed. And some peanuts, which I'm hoping is this thing, but I'm really excited to be able to grow peanuts this year. I've been waiting a long time for them to come up as well, just like the peppers. And so I'm glad it's finally doing something. And I really, really hope this is actually a peanut and not a weed as well. Then we've got also misnamed. I don't know what this is going to be. It's something I sowed very densely. It's looking like maybe it's parsley, but it's been sown over densely. This is not gonna be a success. And the last little lettuce leaf. This is where all of the other ones started, by the way. One like this and another one like this. So all of this lettuce from here and here started off in just 2 of these. And this is basically where nothing is working well, but this rosemary is starting to come up, and that's also nice. I've been waiting for that one for a long time too. So I'm holding out hope for the rest of these, but what have I got here? Some peanuts, lemongrass, another nasturtium, strawberries, which I will make a video on soon, okay? The strawberries are coming. They've all failed, but I have a backup. So the last thing we can still discuss are the bunching onions and the leeks. Now, what I'm going to show you in a second is basically where the stems meet the ground, because I sowed these very densely, the bunching onions. I just went ham with the packet, but it's kind of self-spaced it out, which is what's really cool with bunching onions, because a bunch are going to come up. Sorry for the overuse of the word bunch, but a lot of those are going to die back out, and what you're going to be left with is basically perfectly spaced bunching onions. So I'm really, really happy with how this is progressing, minus this weed that's growing in the middle of everything. I don't know what that is. It's not getting bigger, but it's definitely not good. Honestly, I should probably just cut it so that it doesn't overtake everything else underground. I'm actually going to do that right now. I'll just do it with my fingers even. Oh God, it's so difficult not to kill any of the bunching onion. Oh, all right, there we go. And that's solved. Now, let's give this a taste test. Because it might be spinach, there's like a very, very small chance of that. But anyway, it wasn't gonna grow there and it was gonna mess up all of my bunching onions. That could indeed be spinach, but it's extremely bitter. It's not nice at all. So that's one for the compost pile. But that could have been Malabar spinach, actually. I think that's what I was trying to grow. So that wheat that I mentioned in the beginning, maybe it's not a wheat. Honestly, that taste is off. I'm not convinced. I hope I don't die. So the same doesn't apply for the leeks. The leeks are not going to kind of self-space and self-prune themselves. So I am going to have to come in and basically choose one as the winner. Now, why I'm hesitating, and this is where you zoom in, is because of this big one that I've got growing right there. Now, as you can see, it's behaving completely differently, but I looked at time lapses of leeks growing, and this might just be a leek that's somehow further along than everything else. So I want this to play out just a little bit more before I go ahead and thin this part of the container, but I could in a couple of days realistically come in and thin these out. Basically, if I let this grow a little bit more, I'm going to have a bunch of baby leeks, which is kind of cool. So that's what I'm going for. I want to harvest a couple baby leeks and leave like the biggest one to just take off and grow properly. So guys, if you found any of this interesting, helpful, or if you have tips for more video ideas I should do, please go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'm going to be doing a bunch of experiments. And if you subscribe and like, you're probably going to have a better harvest because something in these videos is likely to help you out. Take care, guys.
We got number 2 over here. Oh, these are looking beautiful. We got number 3 over here. Oh, that's a massive one. Look at that. Look at that one. That's huge. And we have one more right here, which is looking also massive, I must say. So let's see what this one looks like. Oh, it's huge as well. We come in kind of far. I don't want to risk anything. And just give this a bit of a lift. Let's see if this comes out easily. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Oh my God, this is huge. This is absolutely massive. Have I created that myself? This is awesome. That's actually really awesome. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, there's two in one. I made this. Oh my God. Oh my God.